So what's the bounty at?
I don't know. I don't care. It's not why I'm here.
I bet the big Jamoke knows.
Yeah, I know exactly what it is.
It looks like Vin Diesel has quietly dropped something exciting for fans who have been waiting for years. He revealed the very first footage from Riddick Furya, the long-anticipated fourth entry in the Riddick franchise. For those who've been following Diesel's career closely, this comes as a pretty big deal because while he's mostly known nowadays for racing cars as Dom Toretto in the Fast and Furious saga, a lot of people still carry a soft spot for his other big character, Richard B. Riddick. He's the tough, gravel-voiced Furian anti-hero who's been part of Diesel's filmography since way back in 2000 with Pitch Black. Fans have been craving his return for more than a decade, and Diesel clearly knows it. The little bit of footage he shared doesn't give away much, but it does bring back that iconic look, those black goggles, that familiar scowl, and that aura of controlled rage that always defined Riddick. Alongside the footage, some promotional images surfaced too, and suddenly the hype machine for Riddick Furya is fully alive again. What makes this reveal extra special is that it isn't just another sequel being churned out. Diesel himself is producing, and the project is once again in the hands of David Twohy, the director who's been shaping Riddick's story since the very beginning. Twohy, along with creators Jim and Ken Wheat, is not just writing the new chapter, but also promising to finally take fans deep into Riddick's origins. The official synopsis makes things even juicier. Riddick will finally return to his homeworld, Furya, which he only vaguely remembers and actually fears might have been destroyed. When he arrives, he discovers other Furians fighting desperately for survival against a terrifying new monster. And in the middle of all that chaos, Riddick realizes that some of these Furians are more like him than he ever expected. That last bit has really set off speculation because it could mean a bunch of different things. Some fans think it hints at the idea of clones. Imagine multiple versions of Riddick roaming around, each as deadly as the original. Others believe it's more about finding people who share his unique Furian powers and instincts. Either way, it promises to open up the lore in ways the series hasn't done before. When you look back at the Riddick saga, it's easy to see why fans are still attached. Pitch Black was this lean, surprisingly intense sci-fi horror flick where Riddick started off as a dangerous convict but ended up becoming the reluctant protector of survivors stranded on a planet full of deadly nocturnal creatures. It was a smaller film, but it struck a chord and turned Riddick into a cult favorite. Then in 2004, the franchise swung for the fences with The Chronicles of Riddick, turning the story into a huge intergalactic epic. That film had big sets, larger-than-life characters, and even an empire of villains called the Necromongers. Unfortunately, it didn't land well with critics and wasn't a massive box office success either. Because of that, when Diesel and Twohy came back in 2013 with Riddick, they scaled things down again. That movie stripped the series back to its roots, putting Riddick alone on another hostile planet, battling mercenaries and alien predators while relying on pure survival instinct. It did better than the second film and proved that people still cared about the character, even though it had been 9 years since the last entry. Since then, Diesel has been teasing the idea of a fourth film non-stop, and now, more than a decade later, fans are finally getting what they've been promised. But what makes Riddick Furya so intriguing is not just the continuation of the story, it's the expansion of the whole universe. Diesel has been dropping hints that the Riddick franchise might become much bigger than just movies. In fact, there have been persistent rumors about a prequel web series being developed to flesh out even more of the mythology. That series would reportedly dive into the Furians as a people, their tragic history, and what led to their near extinction. It's the kind of project that could run alongside the films, giving audiences a more detailed look at corners of the universe the movies don't always have time to explore. If that rumor turns out to be true, it could do for Riddick what shows like The Mandalorian did for Star Wars, expand the franchise into a proper multimedia saga. Vin Diesel himself seems especially committed to making Riddick his next big legacy franchise now that Fast and Furious is winding down with its 11th installment. He's talked about how much the world of Furya excites him and how long he's been dreaming of telling these stories. What's more, he isn't just popping up as the lead actor this time, he's producing and actively shaping the direction of the saga. That kind of involvement usually signals that he wants this to be more than just a one-off sequel. Production for Riddick Furya is scheduled across several locations in Europe, including Germany, Spain, and the UK. That variety of backdrops should give the movie plenty of room to create a visually unique Furya that feels different from the planets we've seen in the past films. Since Furya has been built up as this almost mythical homeworld that Riddick barely remembers, the design and world building are going to be crucial. And with Diesel teasing images of desert landscapes and Furian tech, the movie looks like it's leaning into that. Looking at the franchise as a whole, its journey has been full of ups and downs. Pitch Black was a modest hit that built a loyal fanbase. The Chronicles of Riddick tried to blow things up into a massive space opera, but stumbled financially and critically. Then the 2013 entry pulled things back and found some footing again. Because of that uneven history, Riddick Furya feels like it could go either way. It could stumble under the weight of expectations, or it could act as a soft reboot that revitalizes everything. If Twohy and Diesel really deliver on exploring Riddick's genesis and give fans a strong new storyline, it could win over both longtime followers and newcomers who might be checking out the series for the first time. Another factor working in the movie's favor is timing. With all three previous Riddick films now streaming on services like Peacock and Netflix, new audiences have an easy way to catch up before Furya drops. That streaming availability has already introduced the character to people who maybe never saw Pitch Black in theaters back in 2000, or skipped over Chronicles of Riddick when critics panned it. So the franchise is more accessible now than it's ever been. Of course, there's still some skepticism because Diesel's non-Fast and Furious projects haven't always fared well. Films like Bloodshot and The Last Witch Hunter didn't really catch on with audiences or critics. But Riddick is a different beast. It's a character he's been tied to for over 2 decades, and fans genuinely connect with it in a way they didn't with some of his other one-off franchises. Plus, by bringing back David Twohy, the series is sticking with the creative team that knows the material best. And then there's the fun speculation about what other Furians more like Riddick than he could have imagined really means. Could we see Furians with powers that rival his? Could there be an underground resistance that welcomes him as a leader? Or will the movie throw a wild curveball like introducing an actual Riddick clone? The ambiguity is fueling discussions online, and it shows just how invested fans are in the lore. That's the kind of buzz every franchise wants. With all this build-up, Riddick Furya isn't just shaping up to be another action flick. It feels like the starting point for a much larger universe. Between the movie, the rumored prequel web series, and Diesel's commitment to making Riddick his next long-running saga, fans might be looking at the beginning of a new era for the franchise. If things click the right way, we could be talking about spin-offs, expanded storylines, and maybe even tie-ins beyond the big screen. So, while it's been more than 20 years since Riddick first appeared in Pitch Black, the character's story is far from finished. In fact, it looks like it's just getting started again. With new footage revealed, production moving forward, and whispers of a broader universe in the works, Riddick Furya might finally deliver the expansion fans have been dreaming about. And if a prequel web series really does arrive to explain even more of the Furian history, the franchise could end up being bigger and richer than ever before. Well, that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time.